lots of stuff. So why are we so interested in using native plants? Well, they're designed to be happy with our soil and our bizarre climate. We have temperature swings like crazy. We have weird times that it rains and in weird amounts. And boy, do we have wind. We have native plants will have fewer pest and disease problems. They will cut back your maintenance. They will not, they will reduce your maintenance. They will not eliminate maintenance. You still have to keep your yard looking neat so that your neighbors are happy with you and happy with you for having native plants. Your maintenance goes from taking out dead annuals and replacing them with more annuals that will die soon and dealing with all those little pots to cutting back healthy plants, clearing the margins around them. That means taking out the little babies that you don't need and giving them to your neighbors so they can also reduce their maintenance, and then you're done. They will reduce your water use if you make adjustments to your irrigation system. It doesn't help to plant natives and not change your irrigation system, and they will improve your soil quality. So we're going to talk about that some more. So there's my backyard. It's almost all native. So what is so great about native plants? Well, in one word, it's the roots. The roots go very deep. You can see here, even this little milkweed, that is 5 foot deep. Those roots are 5 feet deep. Coneflower comes in at about 10 feet. So those roots break up the soil as they're going through the ground. They are breaking up the soil and forming little superhighways for water and nutrients to get soaked in. So instead of having so much runoff, you have your water being held in the soil where the plants are going to need it later when we have a drought again. They also help sustain that plant through the hard times, and that's how it happens. Now, these roots are the best thing in the world about native plants. They're also the most frustrating because when you plant a native, you need to be prepared to give it time to grow the roots. It's going to grow the roots long before it starts growing above ground. So you plant the plant, you're really expecting it to just take off. It's not going to do that. The first year, it's just going to sit there, recover from getting transplanted, and grow roots. The second year, it's going to start thinking about putting out a few leaves here and there. And then the third year, it's going to take off. So be prepared, be patient, let it sleep, let it creep, stand back because it's going to leap. Sleep, creep, leap. Just remember where you are in the cycle and don't get frustrated. So what does that really look like? Well, this is an elderberry that my husband planted. I did not understand why, and I had great hopes of getting rid of it. And when I went out and looked at it in August of that year, I was very happy. I was like, man, this plant is going away because look at this. But I'm an easygoing person, so I'm going to let it ride for another year and see what happens. Come September, it was starting to come back out. And that's when I did more research and I learned that elderberry drops all its leaves in the hot weather. It doesn't wait for winter, it just does it in the summer. And that keeps it from losing moisture through transpiration. So here's what happens with that plant. This is what we looked at to start with. This is it the very next year. That's when I decided it was a good thing I waited because it was a great plant. Then came the big freeze of 2021. Y'all remember that? Winter Storm Uri? Of course you do. This plant, look at that. I mean, it's gorgeous. So we have a large elderberry now, and it's wonderful. Great berries. You can make wine and jelly and ice cream syrup. So, all right. So we want to support our pollinators. We all have heard that the monarch butterflies are dying off as a species. We also know that if we don't have bees, we don't have food. So that's pretty important. Bees and butterflies and moths all have basically a very similar life cycle. They start with an egg. They have some kind of intermediate childhood as a larva or a caterpillar. Then they go into teenage years where they wrap up in a chrysalis, they go in their room and shut the door, and then they come out as a beautiful adult ready to rock and roll. We need to make sure that we support all stages of that life cycle. So, what do they need? They need some leaf litter so they have a place to hide in bad weather. Um, some bunch grass is another great place for them to hide. If you can leave some hollow stems up, I've even had them bees lay eggs in the stems of my watering cans. So just leave some kind of round thing out there for them. If you have dead or decaying logs, hey, the rustic look is in for gardens, so just throw them in your garden and let them sit there. Of course, they need peace and quiet. We all crave that in today's society. And they need some water. So we're coming up on Thanksgiving is coming, and I'm always looking for something to keep the kids busy while we're cooking. This is a great craft. All you need is a flower pot saucer, a few rocks, and some paint. Put the kids to work making puddlers for the butterflies. Next spring, they'll get to come see them, and the butterflies will be sitting on their rocks and drinking, getting their water out. You just need some coarse construction sand, not real fine play sand, to go in there and then keep it moist. It's another way to have great water supply for your insects without having mosquitoes in it. And obviously, you need to be very careful with pesticides. Don't get it on the flowers where the insects are going to be feeding, and spray at dusk when they're a little bit more quieter. But what we're here to talk about are the plants. What are the beautiful plants that they need? And what can they use and what can we plant in the shade? Well, the baby caterpillar needs nutrition, as do the adults. The adults need it basically year round. At least 3 seasons. And in Texas, our winters are short enough that almost comes to year round. So, in looking at what we're going to plant, we need to think about what is the shade and light level in that area, and how is that going to change? You can start now, pick an area that you plan to redo in the coming months. Watch the sun. Watch the sun now. Watch it through the winter and then into the spring. Be careful of tree roots. Watch out for planting under your trees. It's very important. If you plant with smaller plants, you'll have smaller holes. You'll do less damage. And in a couple of years, you won't be able to tell that you planted a smaller plant instead of a huge one. You need to water less, but deeper. So what does that mean? That means instead of watering twice a week, you can water once a week. But instead of watering twice a week for 20 minutes, water once a week for 30. Let it flow down those roots. And then mulch. Mulch to keep the soil warm in the winter, to keep it cool in the summer, and to keep moisture in. So before you plant, what are you going to do? Well, you have to dig the hole. This is a really good reason to buy small plants so you can dig a small hole. Dig an ugly hole. Make the sides rough and irregular, about 1.5 to 2 times as wide as the root ball, but only as deep as the pot that you're putting in, of the plant that you're putting in. You want the top of the soil that was in the pot to be at finished grade in your garden when you get it done. Now, if you're planting shrubs, perennials, and grasses, this is a situation we often run into. I've had it happen to me more times than I think. I want, I go to the nursery, I buy a bunch of plants, I go to the plant sales, I buy plants, I set them all out on my patio, and 2 months later, I think, geez, I really ought to go plant those. And when I take them out of the pots, they look like this. So what do? Well, if you have to, you can soak them in a water and root stimulator mix for an hour or so. If they're really matted up like these are, then you can just take and shave those off. Take a steak knife, or if you have a hori knife in your gardening bag, whatever, just cut those off, cut in there, loosen up those roots. Do not worry. You're going to damage the roots, but they will get better. They'll be fine. Once you plant it, you put some root stimulator on it, and they will be happy. So you get the roots out, you fluff them up, kind of spread them out, set the plant level to the topsoil, fill it all in, water it well, and then mulch. Don't let the mulch touch the stems, just water it really well and then mulch around it. I do recommend using a root stimulator. I like to use um, sea the seafood ones, but not ones with fish in them because that will smell funny. So let's talk about shade and types of shade. A lot of us have big trees. I got on the native plant bandwagon a long time ago, but the first time I really tried to do an entire area was when I noticed that that little stick of a red oak that we planted in the middle of our front yard, because we were stupid, had turned into a giant tree, and that bed that had all sun plants in it was really looking terrible. So the part sun, there's always this question, what's part sun and what's part shade? Part sun is when you have filtered lights and only 2 to 3 hours without direct sun. Part shade is when you have dappled light and you have 4 or 5 hours without direct sun. Is that pretty close to each other? Yeah, it is. So you might think if you have a tree that's not totally shading an area out, maybe you have dappled light closer in and then you have filtered light out around the edges. Full shade is no direct sun all day, but it is getting some light reflective from the surrounding area. And then there's dense shade. It's no direct sun, it's dark in there, and it's often because of buildings. So if you have houses real close together, if you're across the street from a tall building, then you're going to have dense shade. So let's start on some plants. Shrubs. Shrubs are my favorite. I love shrubs because they're just right in the middle. And we lost so many shrubs in that big freeze. This is your, I hope by now you've replaced them with a native, but if you haven't, or if you replaced it with another Indian hawthorn and you've learned that you really don't want that there, then pull it out and let's put in an American beautyberry. These are beautiful plants. These particular pictures didn't come from my yard, but they could have, and they could have come from it yesterday. The beautyberries are beautiful this year. They are putting out lots of these big fuchsia berries. These big fuchsia berries happen in the fall. So they give you a real show in the fall, really good for shady areas and for the birds. Then my very favorite of all the shrubs is the coralberry. You can see down here in the lower left-hand corner, this just looks like a giant maidenhair fern. I mean, it gives you a texture in your garden you won't get anywhere else. This is what it looked like 3 months after the freeze broke in 2021, after Winter Storm Uri. These little coral berries, yeah, they're inside there, but you're never going to see those. By the time it drops its leaves so you can see the berries, the birds will have eaten them. Elbow bush. This is a really fun plant, but you want to give it some room. It gets to be pretty good size, as you can see here, and it's called elbow bush because the limbs are not straight, they're not predictable, they just go everywhere. But it's really cute. And dwarf palmetto, if you're looking for something to give your yard kind of a tropical look, here you go. Those sable palms are not going to live, so you might as well just go get a dwarf palmetto, get a bunch of them, and use them in their place. Great around a waterfall or a water feature. Semi-shade happy. So these plants are happy. I recommend yuccas a lot to go under windows. So if you have a window, you're looking for something to put under it, go inside and look out the window because you do not want to look out the window and be met by a wall of green back of a bush, or worse yet, to have the dead back of a bush up against the house, and then you can't see through it because the leaves on the other side. So put in a yucca instead. It's not going to die on you. It's going to give you another great texture in your yard. It's going to stay below window height. And when it blooms, it's just going to put up one stem, bloom in the middle of your window, has cool looking seed pods on it. And then when when the blooms are done, the seeds are done, you can just go cut that stem and you'll be done. These can take full west sun. So if you've got a wall that faces west and it has windows, this is the thing to use. Even if it doesn't have windows, this is a great thing to use. I do have one guaranteed shade happy shrub. This one is always going to be good for you. You can get any kind of cool bottles to put on there, and it will even stay looking this good through the winter or the summer. Okay, ornamental trees. Ornamental trees are those trees that grow to be between 10 and 20 feet tall. It's an in-between size. It's one that we desperately need in this area because a lot of birds nest at that height. And we are really good at providing big shade canopy trees and nice little shrubs, but we're not so good at having that in-between height, and those poor birds are just looking for a place to nest. So let's give them something. The first one is the rough leaf dogwood. I love this plant. This is not your mother's dogwood. Let me tell you, this is not an East Texas dogwood. It is a beautiful little plant. You can see from the close up here. This is what the blooms look like. It's little bunches of white blooms. Those will turn into little white berries. I think right now this one has just about got berries on it. This is a plant that can also be a shrub, but you are not going to get to pick. You make that decision when you buy it. So when you find one, buy it, and then figure out if it wants to be a shrub or if it wants to be a tree. If it has multiple leaders coming up, it wants to be a shrub. Put it somewhere that you need a shrub. If it just has one or two, you can put it like this one somewhere that you need a tree. It will still sucker and put out some babies, but those are easy to take care of. Now, the other one, of course, are the beautiful red buds. We all love our red buds. There are 3 types on the market. They all do very well here. They're beautiful, beautiful blooms in the spring, and then the leaves are gorgeous, big flat leaves, and some of them even turn purple in the fall. Very good understory trees. This is understory planting is what we're talking about now. Now some perennials for you. Columbines are one of my very favorite shade plants, but only this one, the Hinckleyana, or you'll see it marketed as Texas Gold. These grow to be quite large. They're bright yellow. You can see them across the yard. If they are, like ours are, this is right by our front door. That rough leaf dogwood we just looked at is over here, but these are just gorgeous plants. Now, the little purple and maroon columbines that you see, they're really sweet. They grow to be about a third, maybe a fourth the size of these big ones. And because of their coloring, you can't see them from far away. You can see them up close, but not far away. So next to your door is a good place to put those because you'll always be close to them when you're looking for them. Don't put them, on the other side of the driveway or at the back fence or whatever. Those need to be up close where you can see them. So we always want to remember when we're planting in the shade, we want things that are going to bloom a light color like yellow or white or something like that. Now, blue mist flower, that's a nice light color, beautiful blue blooms. It blooms in the fall. So that's one of the really great things about this. It blooms about the time that the monarchs are coming through on their southerly migration in the fall. Remember, that is one monarch that starts up there in Maine and flies all the way to Mexico. And when they get here, they are hungry little suckers. And we need to get them filled up so they make it on down to Chiapas to hibernate for the winter. So lots of blue mist flower. Now, if you love Greg's mist flower, I love Greg's mist flower. I have Greg's also. I will say Greg's blooms much earlier. Um, Sometimes it'll even start blooming in the spring and bloom right through into October. But the blue mist will start blooming in late October and bloom through November. And that's about the time that we're generally seeing the monarchs coming through. So if you have Greg's, that's fabulous. I'm glad you do. I do too. But please also plant some blue mist flower. It is a fall nectar source, as I just said. And this is a really fun plant, this tropical sage. We planted one or two of them, and now we have lots and lots. Um, they do seed out prolifically, and they're beautiful. This year, they're about 2 feet tall. Normally, they're only about a foot tall or less. For some reason, I think the way the rains came, everything got a lot taller than normal, but it blooms bright red. Um, I have it in deep shade, dappled shade, part shade, everywhere it is. It's just a happy plant. It is a good one if you need to fill an area with a low growing plant. Okay, frostweed. This is the funnest plant ever. This plant in the spring, it pops up and it has these huge leaves. So it has these huge leaves all summer. You get little animals in there. You can go out and see them and talk to them. And then just as the monarchs are coming through, it blooms. It blooms these huge white blooms. They're about 6 inches in diameter. It's really just a whole bunch of little blooms all together, but they're just beautiful. I don't know how it knows this. Whenever the monarchs are coming, that's when it blooms. It just does. So when I see this, I know to get the camera ready. Now, after the monarchs are through and it gets to be winter, then comes what you're going to see if you ever Google this plant, is you will see, oh, fall nectar source. We talked about that. You will see this. This is so fun. What happens is the first time that the temperature hits really cold, like 28 degrees, 29, the stems split open, all the liquid from the plant runs out, and it makes these ice sculptures around the base of the plant. So you can always tell who has frostweed in their garden because on the first really cold morning, they're out there in their jammies with their cameras taking pictures of what appear to be dead leaves in their garden. But it's not, it's these cool ice sculptures. And if you Google frostweed, this is what you're going to see is hundreds of pictures that look like this and no pictures that look like this, unfortunately, because this is the really great reason for putting in frostweed. Now, it does grow to be about 3 or 4 feet high. It gets kind of scabby looking after after it's split open. At that point, you can come in and cut these down. That's what we do. Um, you in the early spring when it starts coming up, if you cut the stems, they'll branch out so that it makes a little bit bushier, a little bit fuller display, and not just a whole bunch of tall, skinny plants with gorgeous leaves on them. But this is a great plant. Lots of fun, especially if you have kids. Some more shade happy perennials. Gulf Coast penstemon. This is a beautiful plant. It does spread some, but it's not a real aggressive spreader. and the bees and butterflies really love it. Lyre-leaf sage grows very well in deep shade. I have it in I would call it dense shade, and it grows. It's just you have these beautiful rosettes with these beautifully shaped leaves, and they've usually got like a red veining going on in them. And then you go out there one day in the spring, and it's just popped up and got all these little purple flowers on it. And then those just go away, and you still have this great ground cover. And then we have cedar sage. This is a lovely another lovely perennial, but it does get pretty good size. So you just be aware of that. You can put it kind of in between your shrubs and your short stuff in your garden. Here's some more good ones. Spiderwort. Love spiderwort. It does spread by roots and by seed. So I planted one spiderwort. Now we've got one over here. I've got one down here across the sidewalk, which I can only assume came because we have our yard crew does leaf blowing. I'm assuming that the seeds got blown over there, or it could have just been the natural wind. But this is a really nice plant. It blooms for a really long time in the spring and early summer. And then it just kind of caves in on itself until the next spring. And white avens, such a great ground cover. It grows to be about 4 to 6 inches high, the leaves do. And then up above the leaves come these little thin stems with these little white stars on them. So you've just got stars floating above your plants in this. This will grow in dense shade. This particular one that I took this picture of, I mean, you can see it's not one plant, it's a lot because they do spread, which is what makes it a good ground cover. You can mow it, it'll come right back. But they're in dense shade, and it does very well there. It also does well in, I'm going to say sun, but not horrible west afternoon sun. I do have some guaranteed shade happy perennials for you. Yes, yard art is okay. Put it out there, have some fun, play, enjoy your yard. Now let's talk about some grasses. Over the last few years, having large stones and boulders and dead logs and stuff in our yards has become more and more acceptable and, in fact, desirable. And there is nothing that looks better around those than some beautiful grasses. So the inland sea oats here, this is a great border grass. As you can see, it's how it's being used here. I will warn you that if you plant one, you will have these forever. It seeds out and it spreads. But it's a beautiful plant, very graceful arch. And in the fall, these seed pods all they dry out and they turn golden colored. And then when the wind blows in them, it's just like those little wooden wind chimes. Really pretty. Canada wild rye, another great grass. I mean, look at the way this bloom is shaped. Super cool. Just a great grass. Here's some more Indian grass. Look at that. Now, this is out in a pasture, but it will take semi-shade. Here it is in a garden setting. And then we have Texas sedge, another great border plant. So if you're looking for a border, this is a great plant. Now be aware these need dry feet. So those of you on that once a week water restriction, go for it. Even if you're watering twice a week, as long as you have really good drainage, it'll probably be okay. So give it a try. Now some ground covers. We're always looking for a good ground cover around here. Golden groundsel is one of my favorites. This is very deep shade. You can see there's a fence right here. There's the dead log for the butterflies to lie under. This was taken 1 month after the freeze broke in 2021. Both all these were. Um, Golden groundsel makes a lovely little rosette. You can see it's kind of round flowers, or round leaves there, spreads out, and then it just pops up with these bunches of yellow flowers in the spring. Just a cute little plant. Wood violets, you can see you've got these adorable heart-shaped leaves and then these beautiful purple blooms. I don't think these ever stop blooming. I mean, it seems to me like I've always got some blooming somewhere, and they are all over. Um, they have blown and migrated into pretty much all the beds in my backyard. I love them. They're a great border plant. They need a little bit of shade of sun, but not full sun. But they'll take it. This happens to be up against a west-facing wall that gets full afternoon sun, but I have others that are in the shade that are perfectly happy. This was also taken about a month after Winter Storm Uri. These were blooming when the ice came, and they were just encased in ice. And when the ice melted, they just kept on blooming. I was like, this is so weird, but they were just gorgeous plants. So, what is a good guaranteed shade happy ground cover? It's mulch. Yes, mulch. 3 to 4 inches deep, especially in your shady areas where you're not going to have grass. You want it to look good anyway. This was our delivery last year. Yeah, we spend a good bit of time on it, but it is so worth it to repair your soil and to protect the roots on your plants. When you put it in, make sure that it's not up against the stems of your plants or the trunks on your shrubs or your trees. I know you see the cities and the HOAs, and they've got mulch like piled up around their trees. Those guys are getting paid by the bag. They are wasting mulch. They are killing the trees, and they're giving a place for rodents to live. So you just need mulch 3 to 4 inches deep. Should come up to about 5 inches away from the trunk of the tree, and then extend out and slope down to about the canopy, the edge of the canopy. So that's a lot of mulch around a tree, but well worth it because most of the tree's roots are close to the ground, close to the surface. So here are the references for this book. Y'all should have all received, you should have received a resource list. If you didn't, you can go to the Native Plant Society Trinity Forks chapter website, go to resources. It's the first item on our list. And in there, you'll find all of those books, and you'll also find the nurseries where you can depend on finding the